what's up? This is Koski of Fun Day. We back at it once again. Kicking it for you and for yours. And I got to give credit to my ancestors. You know what I'm saying? For giving me their knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And also I got to give credit for you to watching and subscribing to the channel. I've been doing real good. Can't complain. I'm really blessed by that. Many people didn't know this past week, the week before Easter, in 2019, that Trump was about to let the black Fed chair named Herman Cain. He would have been the second Fed chair to run the whole entire Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank. This one is the first one. Now, many people don't know about him. In fact, he's not really discussed at all. But we're going to give him whatever, whatever, whoop-de-whoop. So let's go take a look at this. His name was Andrew Brimmer, a writer and economist and an advocate for affirmative action. Andrew Brimmer is best known as the first African-American to hold governorship of the United States Federal Reserve Bank. Born in Newton, Louisiana, Brimmer moved to Bremerton, Washington in 1944 and enlisted in the U.S. Army. He served in the Army for 2 years, raising to the rank of Staff Sergeant. Upon his return, he enrolled in Washington University, where he received a BA in economics in 1950 and an MA shortly after in 1951. Brimmer then went on to study at the University of Bombay for a year and completed his PhD in economics at Harvard University. First and foremost, just by the way, Herman Cain too went to Harvard. You know what I'm saying? I guess I like picking black people from Harvard. First and foremost, in economics, Brimmer promoted a monetary policy that sought to alleviate the unemployment and reduce the national deficit. He also argued that racial discrimination hurt the U.S. economy by marginalizing potential productive workers. Before assuming his post as the Federal Reserve Bank governor, Brimmer served as an economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York in 1955 and in 1956. During that period, he was attached to the Sudan to help the newly independent nation to establish a central bank. A teaching position followed in 1958 at Michigan State University and at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business in 1961. In 1963, President John F. Kennedy appointed Brimmer as Deputy Secretary of Command for Economic Policy and then Assistant Secretary for Economic Affairs. In 1966, he was appointed to the Board of Governors for Federal Reserve Bank by Lyndon Baines Johnson. In 1974, Brimmer took a teaching position at Harvard Graduate School of Business and in 1976 founded his own consulting firm, Brimmer & Company Incorporated, based in Washington, D.C. In 1995, Brimmer was named by Bill Clinton to head the Financial Control Board, which helped District of Columbia avoid financial crisis. As an author, his writings reflect deep dissatisfaction with the racial discrimination, particularly in black education, where he blames the economic disparity in relation to whites. He has promoted strategies that couple affirmative action with African-American self-help. Andrew Brimmer, numerous organizations includes President of the Association for the Study of Afro-American Life and History, and co-chairman of the Interracial Council for Business Opportunity. Among his accolades was the Economic Award Association for 101 Black Men, and the New York Urban Coalition. Dr. Andrew Brimmer died in Washington, D.C. on October 7, 2012. All right, now we got the little PC bio about Andrew Brimmer. But let's see what Andrew Brimmer really consists of and what he done did. So let's crack into that. Now I'm coming out of this right here. This is by the new Institute for New Economic Thinking, and it's a work paper. Lending a hand, how small businesses supported the civil rights movement. This is made in December 2017. I'm gonna read through the abstract a little bit. A large article has detailed semi-roles played in the civil rights movement by activists and new political organizations, church, and philanthropies. But Black-owned businesses also provide a behind-the-scenes foundation for the movement's success. Many Black-owned businesses operated across the South because they provided goods and services to Black customers who could not obtain them from white businesses because of segregation. These small business owners often play roles in civic matters, and their counterparts in large firms did not. Their civic participation and support contribution contributed far more than the potential for political progress than scholars have recognized. Some accounts of the Montgomery bus boycott, for example, underestimate the significant role played by Montgomery's community of Black business-owned businesses, from taxis to pharmacies. For example, from the Civil Rights Movement in Mississippi also illustrated the importance of local and small-owned businesses. Black-owned business owners were on the front lines, resisting strong pressures from the white community. This paper analyzed these episodes and placed them in context of Black-owned businesses in the United States in the 1950s and 60s. Okay, so this is basically what the paper is about. You know, Andrew Brimmer, as he said about racial discrimination, and he said that was holding back the bigger business class from productive workers. We've seen him say that. We've seen him say that. As we said right here, first and foremost, at economics, Brenner promoted a monetary policy that sought to eliminate unemployment and reduce the national deficit. He also argued that racial and discrimination hurt the U.S. economy by marginalizing potential productive workers for joining the bigger workforce. You know what I'm saying? That's what he was about, getting blacks to join the bigger workforce. That's the key. You know what I'm saying? Leave these businesses alone. Let's get rid of this, so we can help build the bigger workforce for the American economy. You know what I'm saying? By shunning Black-owned businesses. We're going to see that. We're going to see part of that. You know what I'm saying? All right, this is page 20 from it. Although small businesses might not have been able to achieve economics of scale, sell to national markets, or employ considerable numbers, focusing on such economic indicators obscures the important side effects of small business ownership. Small business owners were powerfully situated for prominent roles in civil participation because you're in a local area and you know what your local people need. You know what I'm saying? That's what the small Black business was doing. Andrew Brimmer, the first member of the Federal Reserve Board, recognized this. Although his thoughts regarding was somewhat contradictory, he elegantly articulated the small business owner capacity for civil engagement in 1968, writing, "The owner was a community leader." So Black business owners are community leaders. He had the potential, he had the opportunity to share in the development of programs in his community. He could lead a protest movement. He can occasionally deal with his white counterpart. He was in a position to do so. Many observers miss this point because they focus solely on the conventional economic indicators rather than exploring the political and social consequences of Black business ownership. For example, in 1971 research report on the Conference Board decried the fact that Black business is disproportionately restricted to small service establishment. Yet in the same report, the researchers observed that the small Black business owners engaged in the manufacturing of transforming and metal stamping in Rochester, New York, was a symbol of hope to this diminished minority group in Rochester, an effective power base for FIGHT, a Black community organization. So, as I said before, this Black group in Rochester called FIGHT was being backed by the Black ownership of the transformers and metal stamping in Rochester, New York during the 70s. Although Black businesses provided material foundation for the civil rights movement, the desegregation that followed the era had ambiguous results on these businesses. After lending the support to the cause, many Black-owned firms lost business when their Black customers, who previously were denied the opportunity to patronize white business, can now shop in white areas, eat at white restaurants, or store money in white banks. In 1966, Andrew Brimmer observed the existence of two markets. One is open to the white public virtually without limitations, and whites are free to purchase both goods and services with complete freedom of choice. However, Negroes carry into this market and extremely circumcised. While they enjoy considerable freedom of choice in purchases of goods, except for housing, a wide range of services, especially personal services, offered to the general market is unavailable to them. Consequently, a second market has arisen. This is basically a Negro market, A provision of personal services lies at its core. Thus, the Negro market is entirely derivative. It has evolved behind the walls of segregation to meet the demand left unfulfilled by business firms operating in the general market. When the progress of the civil rights movement began to tear down those walls of segregation, what happened to the black-owned businesses that couldn't serve this second market? The 1976 Negro-owned Act, a reference work on Afro-American experiences, lists the 100 largest owned businesses in the United States as of 1973. Usefully, the tablet lists the year in which the business started. Of these 100 firms, 62 was founded in the 50s and the 60s. This contradicts the conventional prevailing view that in the 1930s and 40s was a period of much strong growth for black-owned businesses, followed by a decline of black-owned businesses in the 50s and 60s. Similarly, more than the half of the largest 43 large owners business savings and loans association as of 1973 was founded in the 1950s and 60s. Nevertheless, there was a sectoral disparity because 37 of the largest black-owned banks in 1973, only 14 was founded in the 1950s and the 1960s. Of the 41 largest black-owned insurance companies in 1973, only 3 was founded in the 1950s and 1960s. The segregated market that Andrew Brimmer had observed in 1966 served, in his words, as a protective tariff and provided the foundation for much of the Negro middle class. Nevertheless, the effectiveness of this tariff began to diminish in the second half of the 1960s, as an increasing number of white-owned firms sought the business of black customers. By 1966, Brimmer was already observing that the process of desegregation permeates in the marketplace. Negro-owned businesses are faced with an increased competition from firms catering to buyers with a decreasing reference to race. But Brimmer made the observation where the process was only beginning, forcing him to concede that because we only have fragmenting status on Negro businesses, it is difficult to track these trends with precision. The time of passions and construction of data from the government and private sector statistics allow us to confirm that Brimmer's initial observation proved to be on the mark. Increased competition in the wake of desegregation harmed the prospect of black-owned businesses. Additionally, Tom and bosses argue that statistic of the number of black-owned businesses secures some crucial issues. One, black businesses that may have been more committed than others to locate and stay in impoverished areas than other businesses. Two, these businesses that generated more jobs for African Americans than others possible. Three, in the case of a considerable number of successful black businesses resided in low-income areas of large urban areas. Four, the African American had better initial jobs in black businesses than they might have in white-owned businesses. Five, and the chance of improving conditions in impoverished areas were greater if there was more black-owned businesses. By 1966, just 2 years after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, the Neville Hancock complied of editors of Ebony magazine made similar observations as Brimmer's. As the barriers of race are hurdled, the Negro consumer, who once the private property of the Negro owner and operator of hotels, restaurants, and nightclubs, and beauties and barbershops, have turned with increasing elasticity to white establishments which offer, in many cases, extra service, a luxurious atmosphere, and a degree of glamour for the same dollar. Even the long-held monopoly of burying the dead is no longer exclusively a function of Negro morticians. Increasingly, white undertakers have learned that the Negro spends vast sums of money annually in putting their people right. And they are wisely seeking this lucrative market. The number of black self-employed businesses owners reached its peak in the 1950s. The total declined from 60,000 or 2.5% of all self-employed business owners in 1950 to 46,000 or 2.4% of all self-employed business owners in 1960. The following year at the Department of Commerce conference entitled Problems and Opportunity Confronting the Negro in the Field of Business, Dr. Edward D. Irons, associate professor at the finance at Texas Southern University, called for a new Marshall Plan. Why not a Marshall Plan, Irons asked, to facilitate capital formation of Negro business? I suggest two approaches. One, a Marshall Plan to facilitate the organization of commercial banks to be owned and operated by Negroes, and 2, a Marshall Plan to open a national financial organization to supplement the local financial institutions. By 1968, even Richard Nixon recognized the need to aid Black businesses, calling the provision a technical assistance, loan guarantees, and new capital sources, and calling for the creation of a bank to finance business enterprise in poverty-stricken areas. In the late 1960s, such initiatives began to fall under umbrella of policies associated with Black capitalist movement, which Richard Nixon supported as a president candidate. It should be noted that scholars have precisely shown that Nixon embraced of Black capitalism as a solution for the nation's racial ills in the 1968 campaign was merely a strategic move to incentivize African Americans away from Black power politics, serving his larger ideology goal of subverting Black African American radicalism. Nevertheless, another underlying controversial implication of Black capitalism was the presence of the first word in the phrase, which implied that Black economic activity would be most successful as something apart from capitalism broadly defined. This generated an intense rebuttal from Brimmer, who began articulating his views of the troubles with Black capitalism. In Ebony magazine, 1970, Brimmer articulated his opposition to the demise of the movement in a piece entitled Economic Integration and the Progress of the Negro Community. In my view, Brimmer wrote, not only the promising path to a genuine economic progress of the Negro in America is accelerated by widening opportunities in the integrated economy, Brimmer wrote. The encouragement of the Negroes to look to Black capitalism, essentially the ownership of small business in the ghetto, as a strategy for economic progress is to perpetuate a cruel hoax. Let me read that again to you. Brimmer wrote, the encouragement for Negroes to look to Black capitalism, essentially ownership of small businesses in the ghetto, as a strategy for economic progress is to perpetuate a cruel hoax. On the other hand, he continued, the participating in the Negro and business enterprise is quite a different matter. For instance, Negro may well own and operate businesses outside the ghetto, competing with others on the same line, taking advantage of profit opportunities while running the same risk of loss, without regard to the race of the participants. But clearly such an approach amounts to capitalism, neither Black nor white. It's important to note that Brimmer was making the argument with Brimmer was making this argument with Black political and Black economic power in mind. Black people, he concluded, must get inside the corporate structure, learn how the basic decisions are made, and how genuine economic power is assessed, is exercised. Only then can they be in a position to share power, who shares power, who shares power, share this power and assume that it's used for them and not against them. Brimmer made a similar argument years earlier when speaking to the Negro Business League of Philadelphia in 1963, foreseeing the transformation of Black economic situation in years to come. Let me emphasize again, he told the audience, that in my opinion, the desegregation of the marketplace, which is already underway, will require desegregation in ownership and the management of business enterprises as well. So Brimmer, as he said right here, he's saying it right here, you know what I'm saying? He's saying as long as we can go to integration or desegregation, you know what I'm saying, we're going to have to cough up these businesses and join in their economy and join in their stuff like that. Basically what happened, you know what I'm saying? Brimmer previously stated that why he thought Black capitalism was based on faulty premise. In a 1969 piece entitled Trouble with Black Capitalism, he wrote, one should not expect Negro consumers to persist on paying higher prices at subsidy high costs of a local retailing establishment that shows little prospect of achieving economic skill that will enable them to survive in the long run. He emphasized the difficulties Black businesses owners face in the capital invested industries. The process of success seems to diminish rapidly as the scale and the technical simplification of the enterprise increase. But some Black-owned manufacturing enterprises have found much success in the past. These firms largely focus on production of cosmetics, which is sold to blacks, barbershops, and beauty salons. Sidebar, we lost that too. Now the Koreans do that. That was part of the manufacturing base, selling like Johnson Pink Moika, the pink ocean oil and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And combs, picks, and things of that nature, and hair grease. But we don't own that no more. The Koreans took that over. We just coughed up all this base. You know what I'm saying? And the Koreans, when they do this stuff, just on the sidebar note, they're not hiring black people at that manufacturing place to do that stuff. They hiring other Korean people. You understand me? This is the big fallacy where Brimmer, we got put Brimmer where he was unproductive at. His thought process was wrong. Nevertheless, let's continue back on. Nevertheless, as Brimmer had predicted earlier, firms producing cosmetics for the national market began targeting these black enterprises. And Brimmer said that under the impact of this competition, most small-scale Negro business factory-owned factories would not survive. And that's what happened. We can't really blame, on the sidebar too, we can't really blame Brimmer for this. He just, calling the shit out. We got to blame ourselves as the people for not reinforcing our own businesses, By ruling out his argument against black capitalism and questioning the economic inefficiency and the inability for it to achieve economic scales, Brimmer failed to see another consequence of black business ownership. Small business owners had a powerful capacity for civil engagement and leadership in their communities. This is aided by the civil rights movement, as we have shown. Charles Tate, a community organizer and former chairman of the Dayton, Ohio chapter of CORE, seemed to understand this and his rebuttal of Brimmer's argument against black capitalism. The real potential for black economic development, Tate wrote, must be measured in terms of its capability to produce the leadership in the black ghettos for organizing human capital and resources to take control of local institutions. Therefore, when Brimmer dismissed black banks as nothing but ornaments that might be a source of racial pride, but not a vital instrument of economic development, he failed to see why they still matter as sources of racial pride given they endow black leaders with political and social power. And that was his downfall. And as you see right now, Brimmer was talking about this call for these businesses. We desegregate this call for these businesses and join a larger economic market. That hedge or that protection tier of desegregation is off for y'all now, and you black folks is not going to be able to survive. That was what he was creeping. And then he's doing this as fair tier. You understand me? He became fair tier in 1960. He was already in government under Kennedy. So he's doing it in 63. He was already in government saying this stuff to black people. Off up your businesses. Off them up. You know what I'm saying? You don't need them no more. The white man going to swallow you up. All these other people going to swallow you up. And also what happened too in 1965, you know what I'm saying? During the same time he's fair tier, they brought in what? Immigrants. You know what I'm saying? They eased immigration laws. And the immigrants who was not going to cough up their businesses when they came on through, just lurched off the black community. The businesses we coughed up. Let's see. All right. The desegregation of the places of public accommodation, such as restaurants, theaters, hotels, and similar establishments, Andrew Brimmer wrote in 1966. Remember, in 1966, he is the controller of the Federal Chair, the Federal Reserve Bank. Will have a serious impact on many other shelter businesses, which most Negro businesses that operate behind barriers, including desegregation. The effect was not limited to personal services or retail establishment, or also had a final effect on the impact of insurance, banking, and financial services. The fate of the black insurance industry in the late 20th century shows the unintended consequences of racial integration after the Civil Rights Movement. The rise of the black-owned industry, the rise of the black-owned insurance industry was spurred by discriminatory practices of the users serving to a national market, creating a protected environment for the development for black-owned firms. In the first half of the 20th century, white-owned insurance companies refused or were reluctant to cover black customers. In the middle of the century, however, this changed as a large nationwide insurance recognized a possibility of spreading their market. Scholars show how the increase in competition from white-owned insurance companies for black policyholders had a negative effect on black firms. This is because while white-owned companies successfully attracted a significant number of black customers, white customers have largely remained apprehensive about doing business with African-American insurance companies. Ironically, Robert Reams had noted in 1996, while there appears to be a future health of black insurance companies is linked with attracting more non-African American clients. Economic racial integration has been provided and probably will continue so to be a one-way affair. So they're not coming back. It's not like the white folks are coming here to spend money with us. It's like the dude says, it's a one-way affair. We breaking bread with them. They're not breaking bread with us. We left our institutions, our business institutions and social institutions, during the 70s and stuff like that, to break bread with them. 2 decades later, his prediction was proven true. Brimmer showed that there was 15 black-owned insurance companies with a total assets of $765 million in 1990, equal to 0.54% of the assets held by all insurance companies in the United States. But by 2000, this has shrunk to 10 companies with a combined asset of $653 million, or 0.34% of all the assets held by insurance companies in the United States. So, as you've seen, the one way should be just giving them, even in death, with the life insurance policies and stuff like that, we still giving our money towards them, So it wasn't no backstop to it. Part of this is because, like I said, the people got sucked in the trap and failed to do, to protect the business and see what it was. At the beginning of the 1960s, the prospect for black banks looked promising. There were 43 black operating savings and loan companies in 1963, with a combined asset of $318 million, with an increase of 72% compared to 28 companies with a combined assets of $148 million in 1960. But soon reversed course. Brimmer stated that the number of black banks declined in 1963 to 1990 as they attempted to meet the needs of the black community. The banks that failed were absorbed by other banks, mostly white bankers, but by some banks that absorbed other banks. Virtually all the failures. Brimmer wrote, it can be traced to aggressive lending practices, which reflected the bankers' attempt to meet the needs of the credit needs of the black community consumer in a black-owned business. For Brimmer, the growth of the black banks and their subsequent failure stems from how state banking authorities, followed by federal government, which he had control over this stuff, led to chartered black-owned banks that would not meet registered with rigorous capital management and other standards that have previously been used. This so-called liberalized charting was initiated during the Nixon administration, emphasis on black capitalism. He concluded that black banks could survive as far as they did by maintaining conservative lending practices, or simply put, avoiding risky loans. So the black bank, because of the capital of the pool that got taken away from desegregation, you know what I'm saying? They couldn't really depend on this pool, so the money wasn't guaranteed to be brought back. So the black bank had to get more stingy and more stingy with their money. So they couldn't really reflect and put money back into the community like that, because the power base, which is the people, was tricking off with other folks. You know what I'm saying? Brimmer never really thought. Brimmer, when you do Andrew Brimmer, his only thing he's saying about this is, well, just join this system, and you know what I'm saying, leave the banks and all that stuff alone and join the system. He never came up with a protective idea to protect the black community from this. He wanted desegregation that bad. You know what I'm saying? He thought in this way would be racial equality, which he later was, got shitted on for that. You know what I'm saying? Which he later proved to be false. He died in that lie, with the black community around him being destroyed. You know what I'm saying? Not even strengthened or resolved, and then like this being destroyed. And he was a man in power and a position, being a federal head chair and the economic policy advisor to Kennedy, that could have done such to strengthen the black community so it wouldn't have to cough up these institutions like they did. Desegregation was a protective tariff on the black businesses. It provided services that white folks didn't want to provide to us, as I said, in insurance companies and the banking services. They didn't even want to touch our money. You know what I'm saying? Really, if you look at other laws in 1965, look at the Commerce Act, because that's how they got it cut across. It was the Commerce Clause. You know what I'm saying? Another video for another time. We just focus on Andrew F. Brimmer, the Black Fair Chair, and what he did to help destroy black businesses and to keep it the way and how to equalize it the way it is today. There's not one good policy though. You can come from that guy, Andrew Brimmer, while he was fair chair. It's the first black fair chair to say yes, it had a long-lasting effect to help black people out economically. There's nothing you can point to for that. His plan, as stated before, and as shown, was desegregation and joining the mainstream workforce and cough up our Negro factories, which we had a couple of them, cough up our Negro businesses, insurances, which we had. We had that money, we had that power base, which we had that power base, as I seen before. And under the civil rights movement, it was growing, you know what I'm saying? In 1963, a combined asset of 318 million to, you know what I'm saying, increase of 72%. You know what I'm saying? 1960 is 184 million. You know what I'm saying? So we was increasing. Even under the civil rights movement, businesses were booming. And don't believe, they seen that stuff. So don't believe they had to send somebody amongst us to say, these niggas is getting too much money amongst themselves. They building up a good economic base with this civil rights movement, which always been there, but they trying to combine it and connect it together. You know what I'm saying? So cats from Alabama can know cats, and you know what I'm saying, in New York City, Detroit, and out west in California and LA and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? In Memphis and places like that. They're combining the stuff together. You feel me? Because the only place you can eat at was black-owned places that can eat. That's the only place you can spend your money. So the money kept on circulating throughout the black community like that. You feel me? We gotta understand this is a game that being played. Black, Andrew Brimmer, to me, iskosi Funde, was an unproductive black that kept, who could have done a lot for his black community. The only thing he said was integration. And that's all he could think about was pushing the policy the white man wanted him to push. Which, as I showed here, and I can show many other places, it destroyed black businesses. You know what I'm saying? Of all types. Remember, the black businessman, person, male or female, you know what I'm saying, was a leader in the community. It was leader organization. It had the economic capital to get stuff done. And as I said before with A.G. Gaston, and never say it in this one, it talks about it, he could check his white counterparts. No, that's not going to happen. Because he had enough money, enough pool to check it out. You feel what I'm trying to say? Anyway, this is iskosi Funde. You know what I'm saying? Doing this for you and for yours. You can see he was the co-chairman of the Interracial Council for Economic Business Opportunity. So he was one of the people that just let the whites on in and just pick and scavenge on the people. You feel me? I gotta understand that. That's one of his jobs. He was the co-chair of the Interracial Council of Business Opportunity. So he was one of the people that opened the door so the whites could come in and eat like that. So know this man. He's not really talked about in history. And, he's not really discussed. No economic stuff is really discussed about black history, you know what I'm saying, and our people in this land. But it's one of the things that had to be talked about and what was done and the fallacy of the people who came with us with this stuff. This is iskosi Funde. Hey, y'all, peace. You know what I'm saying? Much love. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to be dropping knowledge like this. Peace.